So now that John Cena is officially retired, I thought I would give my thoughts on his career and his overall GOAT case that many people, including WWE, have pushed over the last couple of years. Now let me preface everything I'm going to say by saying this: I am in no means a John Cena hater. I love John Cena. He was one of my favorite wrestlers growing up, and I was definitely one of those kids that was inspired by him every single week. But at the same time, I am going to be objective and talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to his career.
Hey. My style!
In 2005, John Cena was given the reins to become the WWE champion after he defeated JBL at WrestleMania 21. From that day going forward, John Cena was essentially the face of the company. And unlike a lot of past WWE superstars that were the face of the company, John Cena differed in a lot of regards. He wasn't the southern redneck that went against the authority and rebel like Stone Cold Steve Austin. He wasn't some mat technician like Bret Hart, and he wasn't some Hollywood entertainer like The Rock. John Cena was a white meat American babyface. He had some similarities to Hulk Hogan, but a lot of differences obviously when it comes to how they were perceived backstage and just how they overall represented the company. Cena was the ultimate company guy. He didn't say anything that rocked the boat, and he didn't turn down any ideas, and he did everything that he was told. And at the time, WWE was still recovering from the loss of Attitude Era fans. The Ruthless Aggression era was kind of winding down, so then began the PG era, from which John Cena then transformed his character from being the Doctor of Thugonomics rapper who went on TV, battle rap with so many characters, while also even doing it with fans, to then being the belovable babyface who always pandered to fans, made a lot of cringy, corny jokes that turned off a lot of viewers at the time. To add on to that, John Cena was not always the greatest in-ring wrestler, especially when he started off. He was a little clumsy in the ring, didn't have a variety of moves, and yes, he was strong and could do some powerhouse spots, but I think the powerhouse aspect of John Cena was overshadowed by the fact that at the time you had other powerhouses as well that were probably even stronger than him, guys like Batista, Mark Henry, Bobby Lashley, which is why a lot of people have even said John Cena's strength is actually kind of underrated. But when you go back to early in John Cena's career, there was some notable improvement as they were pushing him as the face of the company. Whether it was his promos consistently getting better and becoming one of the best talkers of all time, or him perfecting his in-ring craft to the best of his ability, John Cena would go out there and prove all of his haters wrong time after time after time, as Cena would have numerous feuds and matches with wrestlers that would consistently deliver over and over and over again, to the point that the "you can't wrestle" chants went from a term of legitimacy to a term of endearment. But the thing about John Cena that many people do forget is that this was not always consistent. Him having great matches definitely became something that was consistent for him, but when you talk about the character work and how he was booked on TV, yeah, some of those segments were really bad and cringeworthy.
Bologna, fudge, and mustard! I haven't flipped out this bad since my mom canceled my subscription to Warcraft.
My address is candypants564@gmail.org.
Please.
And don't get me wrong, Cena was not Vince McMahon. He wasn't the man in charge in gorilla position. He was really just doing anything and everything that they told him to do, which was a huge asset for them. He never gave them any problems backstage with politicking, but what was an asset for them behind the scenes was a detriment to their overall fan base and viewership at the time, as Cena became the personification of the PG era, and so many fans turned off the TV. As yes, Cena was a draw, but WWE was so hell-bent on just focusing on him, which led to the shafting of a lot of wrestlers at the time that definitely could have used the rub, i.e. the Nexus. Now, I know I said earlier that John Cena was not some politician behind the scenes like a Hulk Hogan was, but depending on who you want to believe, John Cena did politic his way into beating the Nexus. Long story short, the Nexus were this young faction of NXT superstars who would wreak havoc all over Monday Night Raw, as their debut appearance is still one of the greatest moments in WWE history. Actually, I'll even say wrestling history. But unfortunately, the night of their first match at SummerSlam, they lost a 5-on-5 5 elimination match to Team WWE. And who was the sole survivor that eliminated the last 3 members? John Cena. And the weirdest thing about that loss isn't just that John Cena beat them, it's how he beat them. I mean, Justin Gabriel losing off of a missed 450 splash, or John Cena kicking out of a DDT on the concrete floor. I mean, this was prime peak Super Cena at work here, which led to numerous people saying that John Cena buried a lot of talent. And I personally won't go that far to compare John Cena to a guy like Triple H or Hulk Hogan, because I do think it's appropriate to establish the difference between what a guy like Triple H did to Booker T at WrestleMania, or Hulk Hogan to Bret Hart and Yokozuna at WrestleMania, and John Cena beating Rey Mysterio for the WWE Championship. There are obvious differences in those scenarios. 2 guys used their power and influence behind the scenes to make it happen, and another guy just was following orders. As that brings us into the second half of John Cena's career, where he was a part-timer. And in Cena's part-time career, he was very, very generous with a lot of the guys that he lost to, whether it's AJ Styles or Kevin Owens. I mean, hell, the guy literally lost clean in basically a squash match to Solo Sikoa. Think about that. It seemed like Vince and WWE's creative understood that John Cena was a fully made man, and him becoming a part-timer was a clear emphasis on the statement of absence making the heart grow fonder, as the fans slowly but surely started to become John Cena mega fans. He was one of the last of a dying breed of legitimate superstars in wrestling. And hell, he even expanded beyond that, as we know he became a Hollywood star and is currently building his name on the scene. And sure, I understand that you have guys today like Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. Those are definitely big stars in wrestling, and Roman Reigns has even exceeded beyond wrestling. But I'm gonna tell y'all niggas right now, I'm sorry to all the Roman Reigns stands out there, but John Cena is a noticeably bigger star than Roman Reigns. He was a bigger star when he was wrestling in comparison to Roman Reigns when he was wrestling in his prime, and he is indeed a bigger star right now. There's a reason why during this retirement tour they had a new t-shirt for every single city that he went to, which is a huge reason why a lot of people think John Cena is the GOAT, because you could say that WWE lost a lot of fans, but you can also look at it from the other perspective of they would have lost even more if John Cena wasn't around. I mean, think about it. When Brock Lesnar left, there was a huge hole to fill as the top guy in the company. And sure, you could say Batista could have taken that spot, or Randy Orton, but Randy Orton was a natural heel and a very, very good one. He was very unlikable at the time. And in the case of Batista, he did end up getting hurt. And you could argue if Batista never gets injured in 2006, maybe he does go on to become the face of the company instead of John Cena. But that even still has holes in it, because a lot of people don't understand that WWE went PG for a multitude of reasons, but the biggest one in my opinion was the murder-suicide of Chris Benoit. That brought them a whole bunch of PR nightmare disasters at the time, and turning John Cena into this white meat babyface was a huge positive for their rebranding into the PG era. I mean, hell, even Batista has gone on the record and said that he wouldn't have done half of the shit that John Cena did, because that's just not who he is.
But he's just one of those suck-up, kiss-ass baby faces that I will never fucking be. Like, I'm never going to go out and say, with all you people behind me, with your support, you know, I can accomplish anything. I'll never be that fucking guy. Because the truth is, and it's written all over me, is whether you support me or not, if I want to do it, I'm going to fucking do it. And the more you don't want me to do it, the more I'm going to want to do it. And that's my personality.
Cena was really the only guy that they could pick to be in that spot, because he was the only guy willing to do all the shit that they wanted him to do. Another thing about John Cena that defines his career are the classic rivalries and matches that he had. I somewhat touched on the improvement of his match quality earlier in this video, but when you look at the rivalries that went along with these matches, they are amazing. Such as his feud with Edge. I think that's one of the best rivalries of the 2000s. They were kind of like a Batman and Joker dynamic in my opinion. Many people consider that his greatest rival. In my personal opinion, I actually believe it's CM Punk. Punk and Cena, in my opinion, kind of remind me of Killmonger and Black Panther. There's not even a real genuine hate between them two, and they actually even have similar goals, but they want to accomplish it in completely different ways. I mean, hell, even when you look at their appearances, they are the complete opposite. John Cena, this swole, big, buff guy who has this clean-cut look, as opposed to CM Punk, who isn't this genetic freak, has a whole bunch of tattoos, as some in this country would probably even refer to him as the stereotypical white trash guy. They couldn't be any more different, even though they have very similar goals. And the matches reflected that. The Money in the Bank John Cena and CM Punk match is one of the greatest matches of all time. And every single time they faced each other, there was a chemistry and magic there that, in my opinion, was only replicated with AJ Styles, which leads us into those matches. AJ and John Cena had an amazing chemistry together, and I look at their rivalry as fairly similar to CM Punk and John Cena, minus the promos, obviously, as AJ was this mat technician, arguably the best in-ring performer in the world. Meanwhile, John Cena was just the company guy trying to get his 16th championship. And whether it was their Money in the Bank match, their SummerSlam match, their Royal Rumble match, or hell, even the match we just saw last year at Clash in Paris, anytime they stepped into the ring, it was for either a classic or damn near one. And I would be remiss also if I didn't bring up Brock Lesnar's feud with John Cena as well. And I know a lot of people do not like Brock Lesnar for obvious reasons, but as far as what we saw on TV with him and John Cena, I think it's some of the most prominent stuff of John Cena's career, obviously barring that shit show they did last year, because their careers are very intertwined. As John Cena even said himself, you can make the argument that if Brock Lesnar doesn't leave, John Cena doesn't even get his shot as the top guy. As I always looked at Brock versus Cena as a Bane versus Batman scenario, or like Doomsday killing Superman, as Brock was the one obstacle that Cena could never figure out, as it all culminated into their iconic SummerSlam match, which is the greatest squash match of all time. As many people forget, that was still prime peak Super Cena, and on that night, that's when Super Cena died, which leads into the point I had earlier, because could you imagine any other top guy agreeing to go out there to get squashed for 16 minutes of German suplexes? I mean, hell, Steve Austin walked out because they said he had to job to Brock Lesnar on a King of the Ring match, and Hulk Hogan, you know, that doesn't work for him, brother. He even tried to politic his way into beating Brock Lesnar at one point. But I would still be remiss if I didn't talk about the retirement tour, or at least mention it, because I did talk about that in my last video. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. I'm not gonna beat a dead horse too much here, but if you've seen it, you know I'm not very high on the John Cena retirement tour as a whole. I don't think it was god awful. There were definitely some bright moments and bright spots, solid matches in between, but obviously a very big disappointment. But I'm not going to let 1 year of John Cena's career define his entire legacy. That would be unfair. And for what it's worth, his last match was an iconic moment. Whether you think it's for the good or for the bad, that'll be debated for years. At the end of the day, it made you feel something, and that's what pro wrestling is all about. And honestly, that's been what John Cena's entire career was about, because whether people were cheering him in Boston when he won the Intercontinental title for the first time, or when they officially turned on him at WrestleMania 22 against Triple H, or whether people were even threatening to riot if he beat RVD in ECW. At the end of the day, John Cena connected with fans on a level that we really have never seen before from a top guy in WWE. Now that leads into the final conclusion. Is John Cena the greatest of all time? And I have to say, I do not believe so. Now please put down your pitchforks and swords and just listen to me. For starters, the idea of the greatest of all time is very subjective, and there really is no clear answer. I think when you're having these conversations, it's best to really make like a Mount Rushmore or a top 5, top 10 list, because people value things in wrestling very differently. It's all extremely, and I mean extremely subjective. I mean, hell, this isn't like a real sport where you have stats or championships to compare. Sure, John Cena has 17 world championships, but it's not real, okay? Quantity does not equal quality here. I mean, hell, Jake the Snake Roberts has less championship reigns than Jinder Mahal and the Great Khali. And if we're really being honest, Ric Flair has more than 17 world championships, but obviously WWE only recognizes 16 of them. The fact of the matter is, though, when it comes to John Cena's GOAT debate, I have to dock him for a couple of things. For starters, he's not the greatest in-ring performer. Obviously, Cena at his peak was a really good wrestler, especially during his United States Open Challenge. I didn't even mention that in this video, but during that period, he took a lot of time to learn some new moves, whether it was the Code Red or the Springboard Stunner. It may have not always looked pretty, but I could appreciate the effort. And that was really when he was at his peak as an in-ring performer. But we can't just overlook the fact that earlier in John Cena's career, he was wrestling with 2 left feet. And towards the end of his career, whether it was because his body broke down or he was trying to preserve himself for Hollywood, Cena didn't really push the envelope a lot. He was kind of generic in the ring. He did the basics and got out of there. I mean, hell, look at his match with Austin Theory at WrestleMania 39. A lot of people say that promo Theory had with John Cena during their build to WrestleMania is what killed him and buried him, but it's more than that, because that match sucked. It was the worst match of WrestleMania weekend. But another thing about John Cena's legacy that you just can't ignore is that a lot of people stopped watching in part because of him. They pushed him so hard, he was overexposed. Everywhere you looked, you saw John Cena, and a lot of the things he did on TV were just not that good. It was childish bathroom humor, and Cena gotta take some accountability for that, because as a top guy, I'm sorry, I feel like it is your responsibility to shoot down ideas that are terrible, especially when you know they are and you know the fans hate them. And then when you talk about influence on the business, he didn't have the in-ring impact of guys like Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels. He didn't do the business for them that guys like Hulk Hogan or Stone Cold did. I mean, if I'm really being honest, John Cena's case for the greatest of all time comes down to 2 things: how great of an ambassador he was, never got in any real trouble, did a lot of philanthropy work, and the longevity. Because say what you want about John Cena in comparison to other legends, he had an insanely long run. And when you talk about him being part-time, sure, a lot of those matches may not have delivered the way we wanted them to, but Cena could have completely disappeared like The Rock. But he didn't do that. Whether it was 1 matches or a couple of matches and some programs, he always came back and did what he was supposed to even help get other guys over. And for those reasons, he absolutely has a case as the greatest of all time. But in my opinion, he's not.